a mobile money provider. We are a mobile money provider, and we're currently operating in 5 countries. So we're using Beam, of course, in a number of those countries. And I think what's important for me to make the distinction here is we are a financial services platform that has a consumer app, US50 and regular smartphone. We have an agent app, US50 and smartphone, and then we have a SaaS product, which is our business platform, which allows for businesses to pay salaries into their spend consumer wallet. So if you take that into whole, you have merchants, banks, users, agents, that's all within the ecosystem, and it's all centered around the consumer app and the consumer and the various ways that they are interacting with the merchants, with the banks, and with other spend users. So it's extremely important that that experience is a wholesome one, where they are able to take out loans or to move money around, interact with our customer service, or any sort of messaging we're giving them, that there are no missteps or misfirings on any one of those various channels.
Yeah, thank you, Mitchell. Yeah, definitely, both with Spend and Absa, you have a lot of different audiences to serve and make sure that the experience and the touch points are working well for all of those different audiences and different customer segments. Across all sectors, including financial institutions and technology companies, to interact and transact with their customers across different mobile channels, SMS, USSD, airtime, and most recently chat on WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, etc. And we do that through the tools and infrastructure that we provide, which are the Beam APIs, as well as our self-service tools, Beam Engage and Beam Modia. And of course, customer experience is a big part of what we're trying to enable for businesses so that they are able to create what we call memorable experiences for their customers. And we also strive to deliver a really great customer experience for our customers as well at the same time. Okay, so I think that does a good introduction. So now to jump into the kind of the meat of it. Maybe Mitchell, we'll start with you. Currently, I think you mentioned some of these, but what channels do your customers interact with on, and maybe what are some of the key challenges or with those channels maybe?
Sure, thank you. So it depends, and if you're talking about interaction in the form of a way in which a customer of ours can interact back with us, so it's a two-way street. We have the forward channels, which are like website, Play Store, App Store, YouTube, all the socials. We have in-app messaging. These are kind of ways that we project out messages, and then some of them we're able to actually reply and interact with the channels that we're offering. But we have to manage all of those. I think that if you're missing out, whether that's on SMS or WhatsApp, then you at least need to be aware. So if you're going to decide to engage, you really need to make the commitment to engage. If you create a channel and you leave it open-ended, let's say you're not checking your Google reviews, for example, then this creates an experience for a user that their voice isn't being heard. So if you're going to commit yourself to a channel, you better make sure that it's being monitored and that you have maybe scripts or people that are managing that, so that you are engaging with your customers. Otherwise, you can turn a positive idea into a negative experience.
Oh, great, thank you, Mitchell. Evelyn, what about at the bank? What I'm sure there's a lot of channels and a lot of touch points where customers are interacting with the bank. Evelyn,
Yeah,
go ahead.
okay. So I really like what Mitchell has explained. But for Access Bank, we have multiple channels, and I should mention them. I'm going to mention a few. So we have branches that are strategically positioned. And in Tanzania, we have a coverage of 15 branches, and this accommodates working customers if they need that human interaction and to perform those transactions that really need the physical presence. And we also have digital channels, and this is a combination of the internet banking, mobile banking applications. We also have the USSD, that is *150 *20 hash, also called strategic Hello Money. So we've really enhanced these channels to give them a self-service capability where customers can access banking services at their conveniences and at any time. And they could also raise their inquiries there. It's also part of our feedback channel where customers can really send feedback to us whenever they have a service request, an inquiry, or sometimes complaints. And we really like to hear the voice of our customers through these channels. We also have a channel of 58 strategically positioned ATMs across Tanzania, and we've enhanced them with multiple capabilities. Previously, the ATMs were just known to just doing the normal withdrawals, but for Absa Tanzania, we have the cash deposit capability. We have also recently launched the QR code withdrawal capability. And with this, a customer does not really need to walk with their card at hand. They'll just use our digital channels to transact and successful withdraw at any of our ATMs. And just to mention, this is the first ever in Tanzania. So we also have relationship managers, and this is to cater for those relationship managed customers. As I mentioned before, we have a corporate and investment banking segment and the business banking segment, as well as the affluent one that really requires the relationship managers to manage that interaction. Lastly, but not least, we have a call center with the toll-free numbers, international numbers. Customers can reach us and raise the inquiries through that. And we also have the emails, or generic email where customers can write to us. But we're not really limiting them to these channels because we embrace the voice of our customers. At any point in time, our customers can raise their inquiries at any channel that is open. We also have our websites and social media pages. And we understand sometimes customers can reach out to us through these channels, and we truly use this as well to engage with our customers. And as I think Mitchell has mentioned, you keep these channels as open as possible and interact with them in a timely manner. So as you may not turn a positive idea into a negative one. So we're really doing our best to ensure that at any point in time in these channels, they have the best uptime so as customers may interact with us seamlessly.
Okay, thank you, Evelyn. I think it gives the audience now a good way to a good picture of kind of both of your businesses and kind of how customers interact with you guys. So now to jump into kind of what we wanted to really talk about. We wanted to pick a particular project that you guys have implemented, let's say in the last year or so at your organization that was really driven or aimed. The aim of that project was to improve customer experience. And we want to kind of talk through that project. So maybe if you guys can start by maybe just describing that the project, why it came about, like what was the challenge or the pain point that you wanted to address. And then we can talk through that project and some of the different things around that made to make it successful. So maybe we can start with Evelyn this time.
Sure, Taha. I'm just going to start with a little bit of history for it to really bring a meaningful story out of it. So looking back, our customers really had to either walk into our branches or come to just raise their inquiries with the bank. And so we then established phone numbers where customers could reach us, but then we got feedback from our customers, and it's also part of embracing the voice of our customers that it's really hard to access us. So we thought of a quick tactical solution that would address that. And we then decided to establish a basic contact center, which is also part of the channels that I've mentioned earlier on. And we enabled it with a toll-free number to make it an easy way for customers to access us without any costs, except for those that are positioned in international countries. Then they reach us through the international number, which also has a cost to it. And we embedded in a very simple voice, interactive voice record where customers can select a language of preference. And if at all our agents are busy, they'll be informed that our agents are busy. And if it's outside working hours, they will be informed as well. But then within any project or whenever you get to hear any feedback from customers, you think of what would be the fastest tactical solution and what would be the best strategic solution to be implemented thereafter, so as to really address the issue holistically. So as a tactical one, we established the basic contact center solution, and we are currently working on the strategic solution to have a proper, fully fledged solution with an integrated customer relationship management tool that would really support with handling customers' inquiries, generally timely, and addressing them in general. So we got feedback from our customers in terms of our contactability, and we brought or dealt with it with multiple departments to establish the basic contact center.
Okay, thank you, Evelyn. So just to maybe recap a bit, the driver was really customers giving you feedback that there weren't enough ways for the bank to get in, for them to get in touch with the bank. And you kind of broke it down into phases and said, this is something we can do kind of in the short term, and you put a toll-free contact number. Is that correct? With a contact center that they can get in touch with the bank on.
Yeah, that's very correct.
Okay, great. Mitchell, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So we have been operating for a number of years with just a consumer app, and buried within that consumer app is the ability to become a spend agent. And we found that that was quite problematic for some of our users. If you're a dedicated spend agent, you then have to open up your consumer app, and you're not interested in doing a bill payment. You're not interested in sending money. You just want to be an agent. And it was quite hidden in the consumer app. And so we were getting some feedback from the field that wasn't, it wasn't great. It was okay. And like most oftentimes in life, when you try to compromise and put two things together, you end up having a reduced experience in both areas. So we decided to carve out the agent app, make it a dedicated app specific to just agents performing agent services. And you have to make sure that that is done correctly. You have existing agents that are used to a certain experience, even if it's not great. And so we had to manage that quite delicately. But this is building an app from the ground up. And so we wanted to make sure that we had everything into consideration, developing this across all of our markets and launching it all at the same time. So we did this across all markets, but that includes design, development, sales. You need to benchmark against the other agents networks in your markets. And it was quite an endeavor actually to make it and do it right and get it right the first time. Of course, we could have done nothing. You could just say, we will just try to improve the existing experience. But I think it just hit a critical mass. It just hit a point where we realized this needs to be its own dedicated product. It needs to be managed properly. And we made that decision to go ahead and do that. And I think the way that we're able to measure the success on that is just the number of agents that have increased since then. I think it's just easier to find in Google, it's easier to download, and it just makes for the whole entire experience as being an agent a more wholesome one.
Great. So maybe to ask a few more questions on that. What I think you mentioned, I mean, it's a big project, right? It probably wasn't a small decision to say, okay, we're going to now build it. What are factors that you have to consider? Like, was budget a big constraint, or what other factors did you have to consider to say, okay, now we're gonna this is a big enough problem that we need to spend money on it?
Sure. So I think pretty much everyone on this call can probably appreciate the problem that we have in the financial services sector in Africa is that distribution is key. Whether you're a bricks and mortar bank or you're a payment service provider, mobile money wallet, whatever, distribution is key. And you cannot discount that. So for us, it was about survivability. We realized that we needed to make this a dedicated app. And yeah, the budget, it was quite high to do this. But we felt that if we were going to grow as a company, this needs to be its own dedicated product. So we realized very quickly that it was not going to be easy to do. What turned from a 3-month project to a 6-month project ended up being a 1-year project. Again, it was a lesson learned. We actually launched in all markets on the same day, which in retrospect may have been a bit too ambitious. But for us, it was about survivability and making sure that that if we're gonna take the big step, this is what we had to do.
Okay. So definitely a kind of a big strategic decision and kind of long-term play in keeping those in mind, right? Maybe Evelyn, you can add when you obviously you got feedback, like what other factors did you have to consider to say, we're going to invest in a call center at the moment?
So
maybe budget and what else did you have to consider?
So generally, I think budget is applicable for any project, but then I think one other key aspect that is quite important, and putting a focus in the customer experience, is also really mapping that solution or creating a solution from the perspective of the customer and not just the own organization's perspective. And from that, it would also involve the right stakeholder management. It's not just something that you just work with. Example for me, from the contact center, the customer service department, it involves multiple stakeholders, and you have to engage them in the right way for them to really understand the business case and for them to be able to implement it end-to-end at a timely manner. You see, as Michelle has mentioned, sometimes any project you might think it would maybe take 1 month, but then given the complexity and the nature, it might extend to 1 year. And I think part of the lessons learned is to be able to really make the business case, or I should say the statement of the problem, to be as simple and to be understood by all the key stakeholders for them to give the right inputs and to implement it within the right timeframes. So I could not say we faced any challenges with this basic contact center because it was easy to be implemented. I think for the strategic one, it involves bigger stakeholders and a much more complex solution. And this would mean taking a lengthier time. So compared to a 1 month or 2 month implementation of the basic one, this would extend to a year or 2. So having the right systems in place, having the right stakeholders involvement, being able to really map that particular plan and to implement each and every step and ensure every control is kept in place and the journey is seamless for the customer is quite important.
Great. Maybe Mitchell, to hear from you. What teams did you have to kind of put together? I know you said you rolled it out across multiple countries, but what other teams did you need to align? What kind of audience did you need to engage to make sure that your project was successful?
Just about everyone, every department you can think of, from marketing to sales to design, development, DevOps, and then eventually RevOps. You got to be able to make sure that this is a standalone product. So that was really important. And I think I mentioned it previously a little bit, but when you're going market by market, every market is slightly different. Every market has slightly different commissions, which related to agents. And you have to benchmark against the other providers in the market. And I think that was the really critical component is you cannot just say, okay, we're going to pay out this particular commission for this particular service. Obviously, you're dealing with different currency issues, but to be able to fine tune the product across all of the markets was really the most critical path item for us. And so that one required the most input from our markets. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking about building a product up, I mean, you have everyone from the ground up to be able to build that.
And maybe to dive in a little bit more, like, would you put together a specific team for that to say you're going to be really focused on this project? Is there like a dedicated product manager or project manager for that?
Yeah, in fact, both. So so I run both the PPM. I run the product and project management at Spend. It's just my background, and I think they're quite intertwined. That's just the way that I organize myself. But I do have a dedicated product manager, which is more responsible for the vision and the roadmap, and then the project manager, who's more responsible for the day-to-day and making sure that the deliverables are met. But they work together, and it's a way that we can get the developers, we can get the business, we can get the executive leadership all under one roof to make sure that we're driving that all the way through to get it complete.
Okay. And Evelyn, maybe on your side, did you have to dedicate a project manager or point person for it, or was that you yourself to kind of really drive this project through?
So for the basic one, it did not really need a project manager, but the current strategic solution has a dedicated project manager, and part of the engagements, I should say, during the implementation calls for really a dedicated stakeholder team, I should say, or champions to really champion it to the end. So from every respective department, either from the customer service, from the projects team, we have the technology team, we have a procurement team or marketing team. Each stakeholder has a key role to play, and we have specific champions present and participating to ensure that the rollout is successful. But also, lastly, it calls for the right testers. That would also include looking at it as part of the user experience or the customer's experience, because you may create a particular solution, but just look at it from the organization's perspective. But putting at the center what the customer would feel out of that experience would really help to ensure that the end product of it, or whatever we're going to be launching or going live with, would really speak to what the customers expect out of it. And also leaving room and monitoring it within a specific time frame to ensure that, okay, did we get it right? Are there areas that we really need to enhance in the future? You see, technology is changing, the demands are changing. The customers that we serve are different generation, and they would prefer different type of interactions in whatever solution that you're bringing up. So also giving it time, that after a particular time frame, let's look back. Is it the same experience that our customers want, or do they want us to enhance it? So getting also feedback on how it's working for it, could measure it. either quarterly, biannually, or annually to see, okay, how best can this be improved to really speak to our customers' need.
Great. And maybe like, since I think you touched on this a bit, a lot of in your background is in change management, right? How do you make sure internally that, if you're adopting a new project or new technology, that users are going to use it the way that it's supposed to internally, right? So because customers aside, your team members, your support, or your agents in Mitchell's case, sorry, not the agents or as the audience in this case, but maybe your back office team in Spen's case, use it the way that they're supposed to use it. And so that the customer experience is what it's supposed to be. How do you ensure that happens? Or maybe Evelyn, any lessons learned from that?
Okay, so coming or looking back at my experience, whenever it comes to driving change, one, we all have to agree change is inevitable, but then you have to ensure that in the entire process, from the inception part, you also involve the stakeholders that are going to be interacting with this solution on a daily basis. So it's one thing for the customer, but then it's another thing for the daily back office user. How is the experience for them as well? And when you're looking at the customer's experience, it's not just focusing on the external customer. This means the ones that are getting solutions from us, but also the internal customer, and seeing how best are you creating a solution that builds efficiency and makes it also a seamless process. You may not want to have a solution that would mean or make it even harder for the back or the support team to interact with, where a person would have to go through multiple channels to serve a customer. That would be a tough situation for the agents or whoever is dealing with that particular solution. So one is to involve them from the very first step when you want to create the solution, but then also involving them in the testing part to also look at it that, okay, is this the experience that you want? Does this really give you the output that you expected out of this solution? And then thirdly, it also calls for monitoring it. You monitor the performance, you monitor the experience from both the customers and the internal customers as well, or the ones that are utilizing the system. And from this data, or the experience in general, that's what will give you that if this is a successful project or we need to enhance it more or further.
Great. So you touched on data as well. Maybe Mitchell, you can also, aside from the change management side, maybe what data did you need to collect as well to make sure that you're measuring this?
So there's three different pillars that I tend to use. One of them is the marketing analytics, which is showing me, are we actually getting people up to the point where they can download the app? That's one. Then you have the product analytics, which is once they're in the app, what are they doing? What sort of behavior do they have when they're interacting with your product? And then the third pillar is more the deep analytics, which is like more SQL based, looking at the usage of the app, the amount of time that they're on the app, this kind of thing. So you put that all together and you can start to see a pretty good picture of how the agents are utilizing the product, and is it interesting for them? And I also think there's another component there, which is the customer support side. So we can actually look into the queries that are being made, the various channels, whether that's sending an SMS, WhatsApp, a phone call, whatever it may be. And we can see if queries are going up on a particular topic, because we have different topics on the customer support side. That generally is a leading indicator that there's something going on. So if there's a lot of people asking about a certain feature, we know that we need to pay more attention about that feature. So for us, customer support in that as a support function for the product, for the agent app, is extremely important. We need to keep an eye on that because that's really the canary in the coal mine, if you will, about where your product is going, on top of the regular, basic analytics.
Great. And maybe on the previous question, like on the change management, like what did you need to do to ensure that kind of internally,
Yeah, community building. You're giving people jobs. You're giving people livelihoods. It's important that you never lose sight of that. If our agents are happy, we are happy. That's kind of what we say around here. Because one bad agent, let's say one irate agent who's had a poor customer experience can really poison the well, so to speak. And it's important that we get them involved early. Definitely when we were doing the testing and making sure that the experience and the journey within the app is one of which is useful. But then also, are they sharing their best practices? Are they interacting with people the right way? Do they need coaching? Are we measuring the performance of the agents so that the top performers are getting the recognition that they deserve? Can they share their experience? And developing that community with them all the way through is how we see it really working for us. We're not in it for the short term. We want these agents to be around with us for a long time. And if we treat them like, this is a really large portion of their income, and we take them seriously. And I think that's really important.
Thank you. So before we wrap up and go to Q&A, one last question. Were there any other lessons learned in this process? Sorry, I think I was muted. So I'll just repeat the question. Yeah, just before we wrap up, if you can share maybe one more or any lessons learned that you haven't discussed already that would be useful for the audience when they implement their next customer experience project. Maybe Evelyn, we can start with you.
Okay, so generally, in terms of the lessons learned, I should say embracing the voice of the customer is the only way to improve our customers' experience. And this is through listening to our customers and what they say and providing the right solutions to address their pain points. But then this really calls for the co-creating part and creating a solution that really addresses them and putting them at the center of what we do. But also internally, I think the right stakeholder management really supports in implementing the projects in a timely manner. And this involves key stakeholders who can share their inputs and solutions that would really assist us in addressing customers' pain point. Lastly, I think what also adding up to what Mitchell had mentioned is also measuring the performance and monitoring and reporting consistently. This is the only key issue that could keep a project going throughout, because if you really implement a project and you leave it without really measuring and enhancing it, then it's just going to sit on the shelves. It won't be meaningful. It won't bring the right outcome. So I think part of it is monitoring and reporting in a timely manner, and also measuring the entire performance, not just from the internal perspective, that means from the internal stakeholders that are interacting with the solution, but also getting to hear from our customers, do they really prefer that solution, and how do they rate the performance of that solution? So as once you get the right metrics in terms of the customer experience metrics of that particular solution channel, and you get to hear what our customers are saying, or your customers are saying that this is how I would want to improve, or this is the area that I faced a pain point, you get to really address it in a timely manner. And I think that is quite important, apart from just embracing it, just getting to hear from the customer how they rate that, and to be able to really remediate that in a timely manner really is the greatest lesson that any project manager or any other person that is working to develop a project or a solution should really look at.
Great. Thank you for those lessons learned, Evelyn. Mitchell, anything you wanted to add before we go to Q&A?
I think just really quickly, and thank you for that, Evelyn. I think in this particular case, we, as I mentioned previously, we launched in 4 markets all at once. And at the time, we were in the process of acquiring a company called Kazan, which is the largest POS network, agent network in all of Zambia. And for quite some time, we were still trying to push our own app. Meanwhile, here we are trying to integrate a new acquisition into our company. And I think the biggest lesson we learned in Zambia is sometimes you just have to say stop and actually let's go with a better solution rather than trying to push our own agenda. We have a new company, we have a new agency, it's a superior product. Let's not push our own product, let's integrate that one. And I think that was a humbling experience, let me put it that way, for us to identify actually the better course of action, the better business decision is just to go with the acquisition that we've made and deprioritize our own product in that case, in that market.
Great. That's a really valuable lesson learned. And all of us as leaders have to sometimes say, you know, we weren't good enough and kind of go with the, you know, whatever is better for the long run.
Correct.
Great. Thank you very much to the speakers. So, Maureen, do we have any questions? We have about 10 minutes, so we can take a few questions before we wrap up.
I can't see any questions in the chat box, but if anyone has any questions, maybe.
Any questions, guys, on how to make your customer experience project more successful for Mitchell or Evelyn or myself? Okay. Maureen, nothing yet, right?
Yes, nothing.
Right. Thank you. So Evelyn and Mitchell, thank you very much for your time. I think it was a great session, and hopefully everyone has learned something from this. I definitely have learned something as we grow at BMA and kind of look to improve our own customer experience as well. So thank you for sharing your insights, and we'll be sharing the recording to folks that weren't able to make it, so they can also hear you guys. Thank you very much, and have a good evening and a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Taha. Thank you, Evelyn. Bye now.
Thank you, June, and
Bye.
have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.